Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. He, of course, the president of Judicial Watch. They do an amazing job there. Go to judicialwatch.org. It's Tom Fitton. Tom, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, good to be with you again, Joe. Thanks.
We're getting close, man. A little over 2 weeks as we do this interview, and I'm hearing all sorts of noise about people being on voting rolls that shouldn't be on voting rolls. There was a report today that I saw that allegedly there are hundreds of thousands of people on, or more registered voters than actual voters in Michigan, and they refuse to do anything until after the election. You guys at Judicial Watch have done a very good job of identifying where there are people who are registered to vote that shouldn't be, on the voting rolls that shouldn't be. Tell me how you did that. How grueling has this been?
Oh, it's a national problem, and as you're seeing with Michigan, you get state officials who are either oblivious or just wanting to talk around the problem and not do their jobs. You've got the federal law that requires the states to take reasonable efforts to clean up the rolls, so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect.
Right.
People move every day. But on the other hand, when you've got, in the case of Michigan, it looks like more people on the rolls than are living there and actually eligible to vote as citizens, that's a pretty good indication they're not doing their job. And Michigan's voting rolls are notoriously dirty. And the idea that, we're not going to do anything until after the election, look, they should have been cleaning up the rolls for years prior to this. And now they've been caught, and you're getting this misdirection and smears of Elon Musk for taking some leadership and calling him out on it. I know separately Judicial Watch has, through litigation and our efforts over just the last year and a half, 2 years, our work has led to the cleanup of 4 million names from the rolls.
Wow.
And it's just the beginning. I mean, Illinois, they've got dead people on the rolls. I mean, in LA County, in our litigation, they settled 1.2 million names were removed. But that doesn't mean the rest of the state did what they're supposed to do, so we're in court again. So this is an ongoing issue, and it's especially sensitive when you've got mail ballots. And supposedly, some of these people who have been on the rolls forever don't get those ballots. But if they're not tracking doing the basic list maintenance, you can't trust the mail-in ballot process to go to the people who are still there and able and eligible to vote.
It's Tom Fitton, President Judicial Watch. He's got a brand new book out called Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. We'll get into that full-throated in a second. Go to judicialwatchbook.com to go and get it now. So what we saw in 2020 was we were told you're not allowed to even question an election. You can't say fraud or else you're in trouble. We were all censored on Twitter, on Facebook, on everything forever. We were beaten into our heads, Tom, that you're not allowed to even ask it. Now, we know that Jamie Raskin and Maxine Waters and others have been challenging elections forever, and constitutionally, we're allowed to have our representatives challenge the results of an election. But they've beaten us about the head so much that I'm stunned that you were able to do this. I mean, I know why you did it, because you're a strong dude and you believe in what's right is what's right. But when you started off on this, I know that Meta and Facebook and perhaps even Instagram, they've been censoring your effort, haven't they?
Well, they have for years. Obviously, we were censored in 2020 along with everyone else.
Yes.
We talked about this case in California. They got YouTube to take down one of our videos over election roll issues and mail-in balloting issues. And just recently, it hasn't stopped. They're pretending, they found God and they're not censoring Americans anymore. They still are. In Facebook, they were taking down and censoring our post that reported accurately what we received from the D.C. government, that non-citizens voted in the presidential election, the presidential primary earlier this year.
Wow.
And they don't like that fact that we were told and that we reported, so they censored it, because the left doesn't want people to believe that non-citizens have opportunities and do vote, unfortunately, in our federal elections, no matter what federal law requires.
Judicialwatch.org is the website. Go and support Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton, everything he does. Follow him personally as well. I think it's at Fitton Tom. I think that it's backward on X.
No, it's at Tom Fitton, yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, at Tom Fitton? Okay.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about this, you just alluded to it for a second quickly. Mark Zuckerberg has, as you said, found Jesus or found God, and suddenly he's a libertarian, and suddenly he wants to get along with conservatives like you and me. So you're not buying it at all.
Look, I think he feels burnt by the left.
Okay.
and he feels like he was probably manipulated in terms of the Zuckerbucks back in the day.
Yeah.
But organizationally, Facebook is still geared towards suppressing conservative political content. And I've described the specific censorship of yours truly and Judicial Watch. I had a post censored where I highlighted a pro-communist comment by Kamala Harris, and they said that was misleading and censored the post. So it really hasn't stopped. And on their platforms, they are suppressing political content, which necessarily, given the activism of conservatives online, has a disproportionate impact on supporters of President Trump and people who want a conservative public policy and government.
Yeah, I had Instagram, another one of his platforms. Obviously, Meta owns that. Mark Zuckerberg owns it. And they completely said false information on one of my posts recently. I literally, Tom, have the vice president saying it in her words when I was reporting.
Right.
And I said, hello, she's saying it, and they just hid it, and nobody could see it anymore, and it came out of the box fast. So you're right, it's still happening. What do? You and I are in media. You and I are a little more known. You're certainly more known than I, but public figures. I've got 600,000 plus over on TikTok, 400,000 plus on Instagram. But anytime they want, they can shut you down. So what do we do about it? And the regular folks out there that don't have access, maybe like we have, because we've got big platforms, they're just being hidden, and nobody can do anything, really?
Yeah, you just keep on keeping on. You know, you go where you can go. You fight where you need to fight in terms of the censorship. You demand accountability and redress through your elected officials. I think to the degree the government was involved in this censorship, there are civil rights issues, and to the degree companies are pretending that they're not censoring individuals based on politics, and they're just being even-handed and neutral and following a even-handed principle. To the degree they're lying about that, that's fraudulent, and it should be pursued through consumer and fraud investigations by the various states and at Congress. So there are opportunities there. But I mean, the whole point I kind of raise in the book is it's not just you who gets censored, Joe, or Donald Trump or me. It's everyone who follows us, everyone who follows Trump. So this censorship apparatus, which has at its center the government and governments at the federal, state, and frankly, it's a transnational effort these days. They're censoring everyone who wants to consume that content and gain access to it. So we're talking tens of millions of Americans, the broadest censorship abuse in the history of the Republic.
It is Tom Fitton. Go and follow him at Tom Fitton on X. You can go to judicialwatch.org. Get his book, judicialwatchbook.com, Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. You said something that makes a lot of sense, but you always make sense. People will claim, well, you don't have First Amendment rights on these platforms. They're owned by individuals. They're owned by separate parties. They're owned by separate entities. It's not the government. But, Tom, that changes when you have proof that the government was contacting them and saying, push this, take that down, censor that guy, hide the laptop. I mean, that's when it changes, right? They become an arm of the government. Therefore, the First Amendment does apply, right?
Yeah, I would argue, and that's kind of one of the big debates now in the courts as states and Judicial Watch has litigation in this regard as well over the censorship I've talked about. But there is a public square element that a company like YouTube, Google, and Facebook and such, they do take on a quasi-public square appearance or activity that it seems to me what might require First Amendment protections.
Right.
But secondly, they get certain benefits from the government that, to me, are contingent on their neutrality. And when they start restricting content based on politics, they become a publisher. And that's not what they promised to do when they get that special protection under so-called Section 230.
Yeah.
And so I think they should be held accountable for the misconduct as a publisher, whether it be defamation or the other liability protections they get through Section 230. I don't think it applies, and the court should be aggressive in that regard.
Well, I'm with you. It doesn't apply if you're not acting just as a platform or a platter.
Yeah.
I look at like a plate that you would serve food on. Well, I put the food on the plate. You decide if you want the food or don't want the food. The plate didn't do anything wrong. Well, they're not being the platform. They're not being the plate when you know that former FBI was all embedded. When they got $3 million on the old Twitter to suppress Tom Fitton or Joe Pags or Donald Trump, or to kick him off of Twitter in the day when he was still the sitting president. We know that they were working in cahoots and in conjunction. But here's the thing that really jumps out at me. I love your comment on this. We've got Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, Hillary Clinton a lot lately, all talking about misinformation. It's important. You got to get rid of misinformation. It's dangerous. It's a threat to democracy. And at the same time, they're saying mind your own damn business. So I'm not sure I understand. Does their message resonate at all? Because I think people of all generations get that they're talking out of both sides of their mouths.
Well, they don't rely on voter approval to push their agenda.
Yeah, you're right. Right.
The government does what the government wants to do. And so when you have a vice president or governor suggesting the protections enshrined in the Constitution over our God-given rights to free speech should be restricted,
right.
That's not an idle threat. And they're not just talking about taking away the right. They're talking about punishing us for exercising the right, because that's how they enforce it, through prosecution, through jail. Heck, Trump is being prosecuted right now for supposedly misusing Twitter to put out election disinformation by the Biden-Harris administration.
That's nuts. It's just crazy. I mean, everything that she says is a lie about Trump on the campaign trail. Then they echo it over on X or any other platform they can. I mean, they're just making it up as they go because there's desperation now. But they're suing him now? Really? Over that? I didn't even know that.
That's part of the January 6th prosecution that's going on in federal court. You look at the material. It's like his tweets are front and center. I testified to the grand jury. They were asking me about tweets. This is
stunning.
Our republic is under assault. The title of the book is let's fact check that. That's true. Our rights and freedoms are in peril.
Rights and freedoms in peril. Right, that's the name of the book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril. Then the subtitle is An Investigative Report on the Left's Attack on America. The attack has been going on, we could probably argue, since 1910. The progressive movement has tried and tried and tried. In fact, Hitler got a lot of his cues from the progressive movement in this country to do the dastardly things that he did. If they could, they would have total control. They can't because of that piece of paper they're trying to sully. So where are we right now? And what can regular Americans watching and listening right now do to make sure the government understands its role, and the role is not to be the boss of me?
We got to recognize the crisis. The liberal left at least used to pay homage to the institutions that make America great. They said they believe in the Constitution and the First Amendment and civil rights. They've blown past that. They no longer pretend to agree with the American way, and they're attacking these fundamental institutions, using lawfare to try to rig the election, trying to rig the election otherwise, more directly, by jailing Trump first, and then, of course, playing games in the processes related to election administration that undermine confidence and invite fraud. The attack on the Supreme Court, the attack on the First Amendment, the use of race to destroy, divide, and segregate the United States, despite what the 14th Amendment says about equal protection of the law. All that's going out the window. So we're not arguing about tax rates here.
Right.
We're not arguing about EPA regs. We're arguing about whether we're going to be a constitutional republic or not, and we need to focus on those areas where they're trying to take away the underpinnings of our republic.
I love the work you do. It's Tom Fitton, President, Judicial Watch. Go to judicialwatch.org. Go get his book now, judicialwatchbook.com. It's called Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. Is it out now, Tom?
It is. It's in bookstores now.
Okay, can you get it on Amazon, all the normal places?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere.
Before I let you go, do me a favor, predict what's going to happen with Merchan after the election. The judge in New York is going to either sentence or throw the case out. What do you think is going to happen with that?
If he can, he's going to try to put Trump in jail.
Really?
Yeah.
If the guy's going to, if he wants to have any legacy or any credibility at all, he should throw it out, no?
What's the consequence?
It's a good question.
What's the consequence? I mean, it's all up for him if he does crazy things like that. I mean, it's not like the rule of law has been guiding his approach as to date. Why would it change?
I was buoyed recently by the New York Court of Appeals because they did a really good job of dismantling Tish James's case against Trump. Let's talk about that next time. Everybody go and get this book, Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. The author is Tom Fitton. We always appreciate the time, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate
the coverage.